In this video, we're going to show you how to choose a yo-yo for learning horizontal style tricks. Now, if you're not sure what horizontal style tricks are, if you think about regular 1A string tricks, the yo-yo is usually right in front of you and it sits on the string, and the yo-yo is set up in a vertical fashion. For horizontal style tricks, the yo-yo instead is going to be raised up and angled, usually at a 45-degree angle or more. And as you can imagine, that makes the tricks a whole lot more challenging to do. You need different techniques in order to make the tricks work, but it also makes it a lot more exciting, which is why people are really interested in getting into this particular style. And so what this video is all about is figuring out what are the characteristics that you can look for in a yo-yo to be able to predict that that yo-yo is going to be excellent for learning horizontal style play. So what we're going to do in this video is we have identified a number of characteristics that do make a yo-yo good for this style, and we've listed them in order of importance. So the first thing that we talk about is going to be the most important. And then as we go down the list, the last few in particular, they're still helpful, but they're not quite as critical as the first few. And so that's just something that's good to keep in mind. And what you'll find is that as you get better at horizontal style play, you'll be able to kind of compensate for deficiencies if your yo-yo has them. So if it doesn't have every single thing on the list, most likely you'll still be able to figure out ways to do them in a horizontal fashion. And so this list is kind of flexible, and you just want to either find the one of the yo-yos that you already have that's the best and start working with that, or get a yo-yo online that possesses as many of these qualities as possible. So the first thing on the list, the most important quality that a yo-yo should have, is very low walls. And so what I mean by that, and most yo-yos have this quality, is when you take a yo-yo apart, if you look at the response pad area, you'll see that the angle coming down on the rest of the profile, it starts to drop away from the center of the yo-yo almost immediately after the response pad. And so this is called a zero wall design. And it's called a zero wall because if you look, there's almost no wall there at all. Right from the response pad, it falls away. And so the lower this particular inner wall is, the better it's going to be for horizontal style play. And let me show you why. If you take a yo-yo that has a higher wall, in this case the 1, and this yo-yo is designed more for beginners and it's really good for them, but if you were to try to use this for horizontal style play, what you'd notice is that it does have this really tall wall here. You can see how much distance there is before the yo-yo falls away after coming off of the response pad area. So when you put it together and you think about the yo-yo in a horizontal trick position, you can see how far away from the center of the yo-yo the string begins to touch the edge of this wall here. And what that does, because it's so far away from the center, that really increases torque on the yo-yo, which basically just means that the string is applying a lot more force to the edge of the yo-yo as it's spinning. This will not only kill the spin, but it'll cause it to turn off the plane that you want it to be on a lot more quickly, which is going to make it so much more difficult to manage these tricks. And so that's why it's just better all the way around to find a yo-yo with a really small wall or a zero wall design, and that'll definitely help you out. Now, the second thing that you want to keep in mind is you want a yo-yo with a profile shape that minimizes contact between the string and the profile. So let me show you a bad example of this first. A lot of yo-yoers know that an organic or a curved shape profile in a lot of cases makes yo-yos a lot more difficult for learning horizontal style tricks, and this is why. If you think about where the string would be when the yo-yo is in a horizontal position, you can see that the string basically hugs the curve of the yo-yo right here, and so it's touching it all along the entire profile, and every point at which it's touching it, that's increasing friction, and it's also, again, increasing the force that the string is applying to the side of the yo-yo, which again will make it go off plane, and as we said, that also kills the spin. And so what you want instead is a design that's going to minimize the points of contact. So if you look at something like the Atlas, you can see that it's got a nice curved concave shape here. And so when the string does touch the side of the yo-yo here, you can see that it's not touching all the way along this inner curve. It only touches the yo-yo at this one point. And so again, that helps to reduce the force that's being applied to the yo-yo. It helps reduce the friction, and so the yo-yo can spin a lot longer, play a lot better. It'll stay on that plane, which will make your tricks easier to do. Now, if you look at a lot of different yo-yo designs, there's a whole bunch of different ways that designers have found to minimize points of contact. In this case, it uses that nice concave curve, and that achieves it. If you were to look at something like the cannon has what's becoming a more common design element. It has this little tiny step off of the response pad area before it goes in on the rest of the profile. And what that step achieves is this same thing, where it's minimizing the contact between the string and the profile of the yo-yo. During this entire line right here in the profile of the yo-yo, the string never touches that because it's interfered here and down here with those two angles. And so really the string only touches the yo-yo in those 2 points. If you look at other popular yo-yos that have been proven to be adept at horizontal style play, like the shutter, you can see that this whole area of the yo-yo right here has been cut a little bit deeper before it gets into the rest of the profile. And so when the string touches the side of this yo-yo, that whole area of the string never touches it. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to achieve this, and designers have found different ways to make it work. And it's pretty easy to test it. You just hold the string up until it touches the side of the yo-yo, and you can see how much of the string is engaging with the profile. And the more it is, the more tricky it's going to be to make that yo-yo work for horizontal style tricks. Now, that actually leads into the third point, is that you want a design that has a higher angle before the first contact of the string with the profile of the yo-yo. So what do I mean by that? If you, again, let's take the Atlas as an example. If you look at a yo-yo just like this, how far up can you raise the string before it actually touches the side of the yo-yo? The higher that angle is, it actually gives you more flexibility. It's kind of how sloppy you can be with your technique before it'll really start applying a lot of force to the side of the yo-yo to make it turn. So if you've got a really steep angle, the whole time the string might be angled like this against the yo-yo, you're not going to experience too much change in tilt until it actually touches the side of the yo-yo and starts to push it over. And so you can see with a lot of these popular yo-yos that have shown themselves to be adept at horizontal style play, there's a range of angles that can work, but in general, the larger the angle, the more easy it's going to be to land your horizontal style tricks. The next thing is that yo-yos that are heavily rim weighted tend to play a little bit easier when you're learning horizontal style tricks. And this is true whether it's just a weight distribution thing where the weight is just pushed out more to the outer edge of the yo-yo, or if the yo-yo is bimetal, because bimetals tend to center the weight in one place, and that tends to be on the edge. The reason why these are good for horizontal style play is because yo-yos that are more rim weighted tend to be more tilt resistant, and their spin tends to be a little bit more powerful. So if you think about this in terms of horizontal style tricks, even when the string is pushing into the side of the yo-yo, because it's more tilt resistant, it'll have a tendency to stay on the plane you want it to stay on, and it won't change that angle. And the friction of the string against the yo-yo isn't going to kill the spin quite as quickly. The next thing has to do with the bearings. For horizontal style play, string centering bearings like a center track or a concave are going to play better than flat bearings. And this one is pretty straightforward. If you think about a yo-yo being kind of horizontal or off axis, the string on a flat bearing has the potential of pushing right up into the side of the yo-yo, even in the very center of the yo-yo. Again, that just increases friction, and that's just something that you don't need. And so a string centering bearing will just keep the string away from the walls of the inside of the yo-yo as much as possible. And it's something that you can really feel. If you take one yo-yo and swap out a flat bearing for a center track or go the other way around, you can feel the difference, and it's a much better play experience with a string centering bearing. The next one is that yo-yos that are wider also make it a little bit easier to learn tricks. And again, this in some sense is kind of obvious, where you just keep landing the yo-yo onto the string, and since it's horizontal, it's a little bit more tricky to do that. And so yo-yos that are wider just give you more room and more flexibility and make it just that much easier to consistently hit the strings that you want to hit. And then the last thing is that if you watch a lot of players do their horizontal style tricks, especially in contests, they tend to do them extremely fast. And the reason for this is that gravity is always trying to pull the yo-yo down. And so you need a lot of forward force on the yo-yo in order for it to stay at that angle and not have gravity pull it down so that the strings touch the side of the yo-yo. And so since tricks tend to be faster, it just makes sense that yo-yos that play on the faster side make learning these tricks a little bit easier. And again, this is lower on the list. You don't absolutely have to have a yo-yo that plays fast. It's just one of those things that seems to help a little bit. And so when we teach our horizontal trick tutorials, the yo-yo that we're going to use is the Atlas. And if you kind of compare the qualities of the Atlas to this list, you can see that it checks off just about every box. But you'll also notice that it doesn't check every single box. The Atlas is not a yo-yo that's really, really heavily rim weighted like we recommended. And that just goes to show that this list, it's more of a set of guidelines. These aren't rules that you need to follow in order to find a yo-yo that'll work. These are just things that in general will help the yo-yo play a little bit better. And so if you look at your own collection, you should be able to kind of compare it to the things on this list and figure out which yo-yo is going to work the best. Or if you're going to be buying a new yo-yo, then you can pretty much get a good feel for whether or not it'll play well horizontal just by looking at the profile and considering the weight distribution. So pick up a yo-yo and get ready to learn some horizontal style tricks.